The crazies are out there, and they have always used fear to suppress us. But when we organize, we always win. But since we so scared, just like in regular, you know what I mean? Like, we ain't talking to each other in these silos, you know what I mean? Like that we have, you know what I mean? Like, it's all this community engagement out here. But if we're not working together and engaging, nothing is going to change. But as soon as we engage, shit starts to change for real. So, and the numbers show it. History shows it.
So and that's why they also do the things that they do. So when you look at things like not this session we just finished, but last sessions, or I guess a couple of sessions ago, what is it, 1848, 1878, something like that, the voter suppression, the voting elections omnibus bill. The reason they change these laws is because they know the minute we figure out how much power we have in voting, it's over for them. Like, seriously over for them. We could literally change the state in one election. New York, D-Town, LA, NO, Florida, Mississippi, KC, MO, Show them what you stand for. Show them what you stand for. Show them what you stand for. Chi-Town, Tennessee, Carolinas, Alabama, Oakland, St. Louis, Detroit, Atlanta. Show them what you stand for.
What up, world? Welcome to the Kings Can Move On podcast. You have your homie Big Reno, aka Frank the Tank, in the house. What's happening?
And it's your boy Lil J, the other half of this podcast duo, bringing you another episode of KCMO podcast. And like I always say at this time, if you're listening and watching, please follow, subscribe, and like. Need all the support we can get.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. So with that, Big Frank, what's up, my man?
Brother, listen. We got some gloves on today. They socks. But I don't give a damn. They socks, but we acting like they gloves today. And you know what today, Jay? You know what today, player? These motherfucking gloves coming off today. Because you know who we got? We got two Missouri state reps in the house, and they gonna answer my questions. As a Missouri, I want to know some shit. So we're gonna find some shit out today. Jay, introduce them, man. Let me get ready.
So what you're saying is tonight we're the Black CNN. Is that what we doing?
Yeah.
The BET version of CNN.
Yeah. This the this the HBO version, baby. HBO After Dark version of CNN right here. We're gonna ask some shit. We need to know.
Okay. Well, we do have a returning guest from our last season. When she came on last time, she's running for office. She actually did win her position. And she's coming back on here to talk about that. We have State Rep from Missouri, Jamie Johnson. And she brought some backup with her this time.
I brought backup.
I'm not playing around with y'all. Who's your backup, Ms. Johnson?
So I would like to introduce you all to State Representative Ashley Bland Manlove. From, I don't know, what district you in? 20, 23, 26, 27?
So my number is 26. If you're familiar with the town, that's 71st to 99th, Holmes to Cerner. It's a rectangle. I got the back half of the city.
Oh, you got the good part of the city. You ain't even got
a whole lot of culture, man.
You ain't even know hood.
Well, redistricting.
Hey, don't play. I'm from 39th and Van Brunt.
Oh, okay.
But
however, comma.
Now, just a quick
I'm
question.
from the suburbs.
I think Jamie said that she had to live in a section that she represents. Is that where you have the same for Kansas City?
Yeah, all of us do. We have to live within our boundaries.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I live off of 99th and Holmes. It's fine. Pull up.
Wow. We'll have to talk after the podcast. I'll tell you little things about 99th and Holmes. So yeah, that's what's up.
Yeah,
that's what's up. Well, welcome, ladies, to the show.
Thank you.
So, Ashley, Jamie said that
before you get started, and jump in with all the with your direct connect to the chess question. Let me hit you with this first of all, Jamie. So,
like and subscribe though.
What's that?
Like and subscribe.
He said that.
And share. He said that already?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was too busy too busy preparing. I wasn't even listening. I was in the zone.
You was
Yeah.
your grid knuckling up.
Yeah.
What I was
Yeah.
going to say is, so your term began in January. Is that correct?
My term began in January. Yes, I was elected in November. My term began January 4th officially, of 2023, and will run through the next election in, I guess, November 2024. It's a 2-year term. We can do a max of 4 terms, so a total of 8 years.
Okay, so it's still early, very early in your term.
Oh yeah, first session, first year, for our first session, first term. I am a freshman, so yeah, I'm excited about what we were able to get done in my freshman year. Lots of good things for my district and for other folks in the state. We can get into a little bit of that later, but yeah, I'm excited for what we were able to do in my first session of the first term.
So, based on what you thought going into it, now
that question,
what are your thoughts?
So what's different than what I anticipated? So I will say that it is exactly what I thought it was, and yet the anticipation, it's different than what I anticipated.
Was it racist?
There were racist moments, plenty of them.
Okay.
Enough to, make some emotional days, some exhausting nights. But to be honest with you, it wasn't as racist as I anticipated it, because we had that conversation the last time I was on the podcast, that the campaign I thought would be, because of the area that I live in, the district that I'm in, I anticipated that it would be a lot of racism and a lot of backlash on me as a Black woman, and they would be just looking for things. And they did some of that, but over and above, it was a lot less than I anticipated. And I had heard from people that they didn't know how to come at me. They didn't know how to attack me, because they knew I would clap back and basically say, oh, so y'all want to be racist. First Black woman that ran for the office, and y'all want to talk about, the things that would make that the dog whistles, you want to call dog whistles. But they didn't do that. So, and I think going into the state legislature, I anticipated that we would be fighting for people, and we did. We did a lot of fighting for people. Some battles we won, some battles we didn't win. Some battles we fought and thought we lost. And then when it all came down to it, the legislation didn't move anyway. But, it's worth it. The fight is always worth it. Even if it is just to get on record and say, I disagree with this, and here's why, here's the list of reasons, because for those who are paying attention, that matters. That really matters, that we're fighting for them. We're saying the quiet part, or at least we're getting them to say the quiet parts out loud.
That's Ashley, important. This is your second term. What would you say you saw was there a difference
third term, right?
Second, third, which one?
Third term.
Third term, okay. I'm a junior.
Okay. So what would you say was a big difference between this term and your first term?
During my first term, what we like to term the conservative caucus had not, and that's the rights of the right, the super calling everything Marxist and anti-DEI and all that kind of stuff. They weren't as strong my freshman year. So I think with some of the laws that Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft has put in for some more, intensifying voter suppression and people just being tired, and then people not being educated on what this political process actually is, since they took civics out of school 20 years ago. I think that it has made it a little bit worse, actually, than it was my freshman year. It seems to be a bit more chaotic. Like the Republicans are fighting against themselves more.
Sorry to interrupt you real quick, but I just want to hit on something, because the state of Missouri is a super majority, meaning that it's ran by one party, pretty much ran by one party, and that party is Republicans.
Yeah, it's like 120 to 40. 120 of them to 40 of us. And all 40 of us live between Kansas City proper, St. Louis proper, Columbia, and Springfield. Everywhere else is voting red.
Yeah, that's stupid.
I'm kind of the outlier. My seat should be red. It's not. So, because I work for it.
So you stole that one from them.
I stole that one. I slid into home on that one.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. So
and there are seats within our caucus that were won by less than 50 votes. So like that's a good follow-up though, because the last time we talked, last time I was on, Frank made this whole big old soliloquy. He pontificated about why voting, convinced me why voting is important. And like there are seats in this legislature that were won by less than 50.
But I had a question like that, right? So I think we can agree that a lot of people do feel that their vote doesn't matter, right? Their vote doesn't count, and why should they vote? So from a state level, since you're state reps, what some things you can point to, like in the last 2-3 years, to say, look, because these folks were in office, this happened, or this didn't happen. Something that you can say, look, this is why you should vote. Because otherwise, you just talk to people that they don't like, whatever.
Can I do that one, Jamie?
Yeah, take it.
So you got it last time, so let me get it this time. So we have a colleague. His name is Robbie Sauls. He covers really the Hispanic white area, like 23rd Street over in Independence. He won his election by 30 votes. Had he not run his election, that would have been a Republican in that seat. And that would have been one more adding on to the 120 that's keeping us down. Now, why is voting important? Okay, let me back up. I used to do this on my campaign trail, and I'd go up to the door and I'd be like, hey, do you vote? And they'd say yes or no. And if they said yes, great, and let's get into it. If they said no, I'd say, why not? And most of the time it was, well, I'm a felon. And I would say, well, do you know that in the state of Missouri, once you're off papers, you can vote again? And they'd say no.
Is that the same for, that's not the same for every state?
No, that is state by state. That's what we call states' rights. You'll hear that term a lot. So we, okay, I don't vote because I'm a felon. Okay, well, then and if they don't say it's because I'm a felon, they'll say, well, it's because my vote doesn't count. And I say, okay, well, do you know that only 12% of the voting population shows up on election day on average in Kansas City? So what does that mean? Number one, out of the 500,000 people, about 300,000 of them are eligible to vote, over 18, blah, 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 blah. So if you drop that number to 12% of those people, how many of those people are going to be on your side? I'll do you one better. I was on 18th and Vine, and I was registering people to vote and answering conspiracy theory questions with one of our other colleagues, Michael Johnson, who covers the 18th and Vine area. And a young lady, 20-something, early 20s, came up to me and said, burn it all down. We need to start from the beginning. The system is too corrupt. Burn it all down.
I concur. You took help me.
I hear you. Okay, I hear you. The system is pretty jacked up. But okay, we Mad Max it. We're all back in the desert in our own little tribes because we done burnt the whole thing down. And what's going to happen? A society is going to start to form. And what is going to happen in that society? You're going to have to engage. You're going to vote because that is the most efficient way for people to have direct access to their government. If you care about why food prices are so high, if you care about why there's no daycares available in your area, if you care about why there's no grocery stores in your area, if you care about why your school isn't getting all of the funding that it's supposed to, but all of these high rises keep popping up downtown, then that means you need to vote, because all of those are done at your state level, not Congress. And I could really give a crap about the presidential. It really matters in your school boards, which are it's a body you vote on, and it determines the rules of your school. So whether your child gets suspended from school for fighting in elementary school or not is up to your school board. And you have to what? Vote on those people every 2 years. And it goes all the way up from there. So
okay,
your votes
but
matter.
wait a second, Ashley. But see, okay, here's a challenge that I have with this.
Okay.
So I understand that I'm more of an anarchist, to where I don't necessarily not believe in rules. I don't believe in rulers. And I feel like prosecutors, police officers, and judges, as well as politicians, y'all motherfuckers, I feel like y'all are rulers, and y'all want to tell people what to do. And I don't think people like, when you have a super majority, they're like, we don't give a damn what y'all think. We're gonna do what we think. And but on the other side of the fence, if the Democrats were a super majority, y'all would be like, we don't give a damn what y'all think. We're gonna do what we want to do. So why would somebody who would, like me, want to even have people in office? Why would I want to have a government in the first place? Help me.
Well, no other functioning society has worked without a government. You just have to
Shit.
have people
Okay.
in place. Now, even in our African tribes, there was still a bureaucratic system.
True.
Stop it. Stop
True.
it. Now, what the problem is, we have stopped engaging in said system. The president does not have absolute power. Your politicians do not have absolute power. And your prosecutor you vote on, so they don't have absolute power. Your judges you vote on, so they don't have absolute power.
Some of them are
As soon
appointed,
as
though.
you decide
Some of them
to
are
pay
appointed.
attention, no, some of them are appointed, and then after that appointment, they're in the election. There's
Mhm.
But
few
even
offices.
wait. But even before they're appointed by people who are elected.
So you
Okay.
voted on the
I'm gonna go
person who's
back on
going to
mute now.
appoint them. You right?
Mhm.
You right? So
Okay.
it is more about a lack of us engaging in the system and letting the system run amok. If you own a house and you never cut that yard's gonna look crazy until you get in there. And we have let our yard go crazy, especially Black people who have been scared since COINTELPRO in the 70s to come out and be loud, because during Reconstruction, we had the most seats in Congress and in our state houses because we are the biggest population. But once Reconstruction happened and the feds were like, all right, we gonna give Blacks voting rights, it's states' rights that kicked in. It was your state legislature who said, fuck the feds, and we're gonna do what we want. And then that's when the discrimination comes in. That's when we start getting suppressed and voter poll taxes and people getting murdered and all that kind of stuff. White race riots, those kind of stuff. That's out of states' rights. But if we vote in that too, we can get rid of that as well. It's about us engaging in the system, and we don't because we're scared and we haven't been taught to.
What can people do, or what can a government, the state government, do for us with something like the NRA? Is there anything that they can do about gun control? Because as we can see, the federal government is not going to do any fucking thing about it, because it seems like they're in the NRA's pockets.
No, because of the feds. But that's again, people always talk about term limits. We had term limits. They're called elections. And that means you have to pay attention to your local politician and how they're voting versus what they're saying, and then show up on election day and tell them whether you approve or not. But when we don't show up, that's automatic approval. So then they keep doing the things that we see are bad, and then we keep getting more discouraged instead of engaging. So no, like this, Kansas City has several times tried to pass, you can't have extendos or, no automatic weapons and stuff like that. And either the state will usurp it or it can't be held up because that is a Fed thing. But like I said, you fix the feds by voting and engaging in the system.
So
And more
You fix
people
every
want to
level.
change the system than you think. They're really
Yeah.
just scared. Like there's a whole bunch of Democrats in rural Missouri, but since they got a Trump crazy on each side, they're as scared as a Black person in a white neighborhood. You know what I mean? Like they don't want to, like my homie Jalen Anderson is a county elected and he's out in Blue Springs and he's mixed, he's biracial. So he's a little bit lighter than me, but kind of presents like he's Latino or something. He's had watermelons tossed in his yard, and he's had stuff burned in his yard. And that's in Blue Springs. You know what I mean? So like the crazies are out there and they have always used fear to suppress us. But when we organize, we always win. But since we so scared, just like in regular, you know what I mean? Like we ain't talking to each other in these silos, you know what I mean? Like that we have, you know what I mean? Like it's all this community engagement out here. But if we're not working together and engaging, nothing is going to change. But as soon as we engage, shit starts to change for real. So, and the numbers show it, history shows it.
So and that's why they also do the things that they do. So when you look at things like not this session we just finished, but last sessions, or I guess a couple of sessions ago, what is it, 1848, 1878, something like that, the voter suppression, the voting elections omnibus bill. The reason they change these laws is because they know the minute we figure out how much power we have in voting, it's over for them. Like seriously over for them. We could literally change the state in one election if people register and show up. We could literally change most of the states.
We know. So you're identifying the problems, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. We can say the system's broken or the process is broken. Either or, we'll look at it. So then the question would be then, if we know the problems, how can we change people's mindsets?
The system is not broken,
Jason. Fear mentality where they will come out and actually engage in
the system. Here's the thing. The system is not broken. The system is operating as it is designed to operate. It is operating efficiently and on time and all the other things. It is operating as it is supposed to. We have been taught that we don't have the power that we actually have. So you've got all these people who are afraid to use their voice, afraid to speak up, because they've been taught that doing so will harm them in some way, whether that's harm them physically because people are inciting violence against people who vote, or harm them in, I got to pay extra money, put gas in my car to get to the poll because it's farther away from my house than in other communities. In the community that I live in, there are 2 polling places that are in walking distance from each other. You can see one from the other one. And then I go to Kansas City where you have to drive to the nearest polling place, and then the next polling place you have to drive if you want to get there in an efficient manner.
So how do you fix that? Since you're on the inside now, you're the politician, and you know.
So here's the thing:
the problems are.
It's an inside out game, right? People like me get into the government, and then encourage people like me to engage in the government. It's a twofold system. I can't fix it. Me and Ashley can't fix it by ourselves.
What do you do to engage, though? What do you do to
voter registration, talking to people, that voter registration drive that Ashley was just talking about, knocking on doors, talking to people one-to-one, giving people information, doing podcasts. The whole thing is, the marketing, we have to come out of the state house and reach the people, but the people also have to be, I don't want to say hungry for knowledge, but they have to be receptive, right? Because at the end of the day, like I said, we could literally change the state in one election. We could flip the whole script in one election if people registered and made it a point to get to the polling place and vote.
So I also go into the schools. When I was a kid, yes. The mayor was constantly in the schools and the congressmen were constantly in the schools, and you don't see that anymore. And again, that's from intentionally taking civics education, the process of how to vote and studying why and where. They took that out of school. So I make it a point. I was just at Alta Vista the other day. I'm in Crossroads. I'm in Kaufman. There's like 3, 4 other Hogan. Just because that's the area I'm at, and it's in Charter School Road. Not to spite the other schools. That's just the schools. But like, and I'll give you another example, right? So, like it or not, we passed by initiative petition recreational marijuana, right? Recreational medical marijuana. Now, I didn't think that they went far enough, and I didn't think they were good enough, so I didn't vote for them. But what it does prove is that when people do come out, because the election, the turnout was like 57% or something like that. When we do come out, we get what we want. And when we don't, bad things happen. So it also happened when we voted for Medicaid expansion. Now, what Medicaid expansion is there's this group of people in the middle. They make too much to be poor, but not enough to actually sustain themselves. They're called the missing middle. Most of us fit into that group, actually. And it will cover them on state health insurance. That was a vote. And that was a vote that has been being pushed for 10 years because some old pastors got arrested years ago in the Capitol for trying to push the same initiative. So it takes time, which people don't also understand. Most people don't know it takes a real bill 7 years to pass. It's not supposed to be this overnight stuff. It's supposed to be thought out and take time and come out with the best product. So when we work hard and we're diligent, just like if we're studying for a degree or whatever it is, when you work hard and you're diligent, good things happen. When we work hard and we're diligent, we stop the law that says a employer can fire you for no reason. That's called right to work. We stop that. So the employer has to give you a reason. We got insurance expanded for those who needed it. We got cannabis, you know what I mean? And the list goes on prior to that of other things that we have received here in the state. And we're one of the few states that actually has initiative petition to where you can go over the legislator when they're not listening to you and put it directly on the ballot for a vote of the people, like Kansas did with abortion.
Which is going to be on the ballot in 2024, by the way. Abortion is going to be on the ballot in Missouri in 2024.
So how do we reach people? How do we make this change? We file bills while we're in the legislature, January through May, and pray to God we get a hearing. And if we don't, we're boots on ground in these streets, talking to anybody who will listen, anybody who has a question, anybody who has a concern about this political process in the United States.
So let me switch it up just a little bit. I want to ask a question. So let's say a person like myself wants to see something change as far as judges staying on. Because, for example, you said 4 terms is the max that you guys can do. Judges can be on there for their life, like a Supreme Court judge. I don't know about state Supreme Courts, but
states and states cannot. That is only like Supreme Court is a lifetime. Fed Supreme Court is a lifetime. Now you have the Missouri Supreme Court, and it is maybe 10 or 15 years. But as I said, you know what I mean? Like, that's not necessarily. Now, we should put judges on the ballot. And a lot of judges, like I said, they get appointed at first, maybe by the governor, who you also voted for. But we might get the governor to appoint somebody, but then after they've been appointed, you vote on them. They are on the 2-year ballot.
I see some judges on the ballot, and I'm of the type, because I don't like rulers. I will always vote for a judge. I will always vote no for a judge. I don't give a shit who it is. But I'm just wondering, how can we get that stuff, like things like that, more prominent to where these judges, these prosecutors, these police officers are on the ballot? Because one of the challenges that I have is police accountability. And it seems like the government doesn't do anything to change it. I'm an insurance agent. If I mess up, if I write somebody a policy and then I lie on that policy, not only can I not sell in Missouri, my license will be revoked. Kansas, Ohio, California, anywhere I try to go to get an insurance license, I can't do it. A police officer can assault somebody in Kansas City, but then go to Lee Summit and get a job. So how can we stop that? I mean, how can you guys, as government officials, state legislators, put something on the ballot to stop that? Or how could I even put up that initiative?
Well, okay, so first let me clarify. Missouri, so number one, there is no fluidity is not my word. There's no like unification between police departments. Police departments are brought on by their municipality willy-nilly. Now, when you graduate from the police academy, you get registered with what in our state is called the post. And the post is a governing body that does check those kinds of things. Have they been good? No. Again, they're appointed by the governor that we vote for. But there is a mechanism to stop district hopping between bad cops. Now, whether we enforce that or not, or whether the chief that let that cop go writes the proper paperwork so that it can be marked in the system that they cannot work anywhere else, are different things. But also, your chief you vote for. Well, here in Kansas City, we do not, because we're under local control, because of the aforementioned racism and mafia days. So our chief is, as we saw in this last process, appointed by the Board of Police Commissioners, which is appointed by the governor. But again, all those other people you vote for. Now, please call up Miss Gwen Grant at the Urban League and tell her you want to get on the campaign for local control, to where Kansas City will be able to vote for their chief and will not be mandated by the state on how we are to run our police, but the city has to pay for said police. Please get on. That's a great way to get on board, to get something on the ballot. Now, of course, we have all filed legislation as Democrats for St. Louis and Kansas City to keep local control, stop the state from taking over or whatever, and bring accountability in those measures. But again, in that super minority, we don't get heard. So we got to get everybody to engage.
Yeah, we actually passed that out of the House this year for St. Louis or for the state to take over, because St. Louis, by some modern miracle of science, got local control back of their police
by initiative on the ballot,
by initiative petition. And so and then the legislature decided this session to try to take that back because of the violence that's happening. And when I say violence, there is gun violence, but it's everywhere. So when I say violence, I mean there is no more gun violence in St. Louis than there is in Springfield, than there is in Kansas City, than there is in wherever else. So they use that as a reason to try to take back control of the St. Louis Police Department. It did not work because, fortunately for us, the Missouri Senate is pretty dysfunctional this year, as it has been in the last couple of years. So there's a lot of bad legislation that did not pass, but there was also a lot of good legislation that did not pass through both chambers of the House, because obviously from Schoolhouse Rock days that we file it in the House, it goes to the Senate, they approve it, we all agree, it goes to the governor's desk. That's the simplified version. But we moved it in the House, we passed it in the House after a whole lot of not a whole lot of debate because they shut us down, but after a good bit of debate, we passed it, sent it to the Senate, and because of Senate dysfunction and Senate, them not being able to get on the same page in the Senate, the Republicans specifically not being able to get on the same page between the conservative caucus and the moderate caucus of Republicans, it did not pass through to go to the governor's desk. So sometimes government inefficiency is a good thing, especially when you're in a supermajority of Republicans who would do bad things if they could all agree. But they can't. So we take advantage of that where we can. We jam things into doors where we can, and we make sure that we do our best to make sure that bad legislation doesn't pass. This year, we only had about 3 bills that we consider egregious, that did pass.
This is egregious. This is egregious.
This is egregious.
Egregious.
Unmitigated. They had the unmitigated gall to try to pass this, and they did. And they are going to harm people. These bills are specifically going to harm people.
Give me an example of one of those bills. I mean, what was one?
So
of
there
bills?
were three. There were three. One of them was a ban on transgender medical care. Makes it illegal for parents to seek gender affirming care for their children. And when we talk about gender affirming care, we're not talking about surgery, because that's the talking point that they want to give you, is that we're mutilating children and doing all those types of things. We're not doing that's not what's happening. The stats on that is less than a full percentage point of all transgender people, not just children, but all transgender people actually get the surgery, because it is elective and it is expensive. Most people don't have the money to pay for it. So that transgender medical care, that gender affirming care, what we're talking about is therapy, is getting a therapist to talk to your child to make sure that they are what they say they are. Because, at 5 years old, my kids wanted to eat ice cream, for dinner or for breakfast, or actually for everything. But, when your child comes to you and says, I don't want to wear dresses anymore, I want to wear boys' clothes, or what I perceive to be boys' clothes, and tells you that they want to cut their hair and they want to be called by a boy's name, then that may be something that maybe it's a phase, maybe it's not. But let's go see. Let's go take this child to a therapist.
Republicans don't want that?
The Republicans want to stop parents from seeking gender affirming care for their child. So we're talking about therapy. We're talking about when you get to the age of puberty, having puberty blockers, because if you were born a biological female during puberty, and you have lived most of your life as a boy, and as being perceived as a boy, or presenting yourself as a boy, at puberty, you're going to be outed, right? You're going to grow breasts. You're going to do all of these things. And the puberty blockers work to stop those things from happening, those puberty, whatever you want to call them, from happening, so that you have time to make whatever decisions you're going to make as you move into adulthood. And yes, and so this is the fuck shit, right? Because you want to ban parents from seeking gender affirming care, but then on the same token, you want to say parents have rights into, blocking all the CRT stuff. So that's the psychological game that we're playing, in which one side of your mouth you're talking about giving parents rights, and on the other side of your mouth you're talking about taking rights away from parents to do what's best for that they feel is best for their children. And so that's the psychological game that we're playing in the legislature. Go ahead, Frank.
Ashley's muted.
Oh yeah, you had something to add to that?
Oh no, I was just confirming what you said. Right. It's really not even about what the legislation was. It's about the hypocrisy in which they present the legislation. So for these past couple of years, we've been talking about gun owner rights, and whether parents have rights to know what's going on with the teachers teaching, and whether the parents should get a copy of the curriculum or not. But then the next minute saying, no, parents, you don't know what's best for your child. And we can throw you and the doctor in jail for making this decision for your child. And that's the kind of stuff that we're fighting. So like another one was fighting, or they passed the ban on, it was trans kids were the target this year. And as a Black woman, I know what it's like to be an oppressed person. So I'm not down for anybody being picked on. I don't care if I agree with them or not. But they said, okay, so we need to protect girls' sports by making sure these trans boys or these trans women who were born male aren't playing with females. But we're not talking about getting background checks for the coaches who we know are literally raping children in front of their parents. We're not talking about none of that. We're not even talking about real stuff. So it's just a whole lot of fear mongering and those like,
y'all ever thought about using reverse psychology on them. Like, yeah, you're right.
I
You're
do
right.
that all the
And
time.
it seemed like they would be like, oh, okay, well, let's just rethink this then. You know?
So
Right, just try to flip it on them.
yeah.
A couple of times, one of our other colleagues who is very versed, he's from out of St. Louis, his name is Peter Meredith, and he can get down into the nuance.
Shout out to Peter.
Shout out to Peter. Peter's gone viral a couple of times for flashing, and it's been beautiful. But he knows enough to get down into nuance to do that reverse psychology. But most of the time, I'm so flustered from just defending my humanity as a Black woman a Black gay woman in that legislature. I'm a little too flustered to like play the mind games. I just want it all to stop and stop toying with people's lives, because that's not what the government's supposed to do.
Right, and exactly, and that's the problem, is that we are on the defensive a lot of times, but what we're not talking about is the 20 years of GOP supermajority, which has run this state into the ground while we fight these stupid culture wars, while we fight these things that are hurting people. Well, you absolutely right, but we're trying to fix it. So, but we don't have the majority, or we don't even, I'm not even, you know what? I'm not even like, let's break the majority. I'm like, let's get a little bit more balance. Let's get a little bit more balance.
50-50 is just fine with me.
50-50 is just fine with me. But 50-50 gives you, but see what 50-50 does, what more balance does, it takes down the rhetoric, because you actually have to do things to win over the votes that you need to win something, to pass something. And so, because not all the Republicans are doing these dumb culture war stuff. Like,
but that's why I think it should be 30-30-30. The Democrat, Republican, and independents. Independents. So.
Well, that means people have to identify as an independent, and the independents have to get themselves together so that they can be a big enough voting bloc. Right. That's just not how the split goes right now. Right now in Missouri, it goes conservative Republican, moderate Republican, Democrat, liberal. Yeah. That's the 4-way split, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the 4-way split, but it's also split 111 to 53. So yeah. So we are trying to get more balance in the state so that we can bring down some of the rhetoric, some of the culture war stuff, so we can actually pass things that are good for the state. We did pass a lot of good stuff this year. I don't want to like make it dark and gloomy, but or let it not stay dark and gloomy. We like dark and gloomy sometimes, but we also like sunshine. So we did pass a lot of good stuff this year. And most of that has been championed. Like Ashley said, it takes 7 years to actually get a bill across the line. Most of that happened because Democrats carried it for years and years and years and years and years. And now Republicans are like, you know what? That is a good idea. Let's steal it and pass it, which is the thing I was talking about on Twitter a couple of days ago, is that 20 plus years at this point of GOP supermajority has made folks lazy. So instead of just, researching bills, trying to see what's good for the state, they just come and take Democrats' bills. I filed a bill. It was literally copied word for word by a Republican. Like he just basically took a copy of my bill to the office and put his name on it and said, hey, here's my bill, let's work together on this, which meant I did all the work. So it's a group project. Group projects in the legislature suck. So just saying. But now it's under his name and my name, and it got a hearing this year, which is also unheard of. A lot of freshmen got hearings this year, which is super dope, because that doesn't typically happen. Let's also back up to say how hard it is to pass the bill. I know Ashley said 7 years, but we filed, the legislature, both sides of the building, both the House and the Senate, filed over 3,000 bills this year, and we passed Ashley 43 bills.
That's
out
bullshit.
Out of 3,000, we passed 43 bills.
No, I'm just saying it's bullshit. Y'all put 43 more laws in place. We ain't got enough fucking laws.
Well, some of them aren't. Some of them aren't new laws. Some of them are fixing old laws, cleaning up statutes. What we didn't get to is sports gambling. I know you're gonna be mad about that, but when we didn't, we passed it out of the House.
I can gamble. I can shoot dice on the corner. I ain't worried about that.
And
Okay.
that's my
Alright,
chance
alright.
to come in. I gotta open it. Thank you, Frank, for that
Come on,
Moving
sis, with your
along,
funky
Hey,
ass. Come on, let's go.
you finally gave him a little minute. Hey, Paul took a breath when you said that shit. So let me get my question.
That's great.
So we know right now the two parties are so far apart. They're so far left, so far right. Are there any policies that you see both parties can agree on to really push through? Because it's like,
Yeah,
you way over there, you way over here.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
there's tons of policies, and like I said, there was a lot of stuff that was even though they stole Jamie's language, that was still considered bipartisan. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of stuff that we can agree on. And her language is again about taking care of mommies after they've had their baby. You know what I mean? And making sure that they have the insurance and stuff that they need. So we can agree on stuff, normally taking care of kids. There's a lot of like foster care, kumbayas, we all agree that our education system needs to be reformed. It's just how that needs to happen. We all are annoyed by these semis all on the highway and them not paying their fair share and tearing up our roads.
Oh, wait. What do you mean they not paying their fair share? Y'all trying to get more tax money? Y'all about to go to fucking Puerto Rico on the Missourians' dime. Y'all about to go to Puerto Rico on our dime, and you want a semi-truck to come through the highway? Y'all already pay gas tax. Get out of here with all that.
Back up.
I'm using some of that money that y'all
Back up.
The event that is happening in Puerto Rico, we did not pick that place.
No.
And it is
another
the
Democrat
national.
or Republican deal.
Let me finish.
It is actually bipartisan. So
it is the National Association of Black Elected Women. Right now, the most camaraderie needs to happen within Black women who will continue to save this daggum country. So we are going
from itself.
Y'all better go
we are going to meet with other Black women, and that also did not come off of a state dime. Those come from donations.
Hold up. You know what? Actually, hold up.
We
about to kill all of this. He just mad. He jealous.
That comes to us from donations from people who believe in us and who want us to learn and be better politicians, because that's what we all want.
This is education.
Help me. Where do I need to go? Who do I need to call to get to Puerto Rico?
I'm sure there's an organization of insurance salesmen that you for a conference you can go to.
I'm sure.
Don't be mad that your insurance salesman professional org ain't going to Puerto Rico. Your conference ain't in Puerto Rico. Don't hate on us.
Probably in Vegas this year or something.
Jason, you better check your state reps down there in Texas, dog, because they may be these motherfuckers up in Missouri going to Puerto Rico too. Them motherfuckers down in Texas may be going
national.
Alabama,
national group of Black
women.
National group of Black women, including the islands. So we got women from the Virgin Islands as well. We got a woman from Alaska, all over.
Yes.
And we're there communing with each other.
Send me to the Virgin Islands. Y'all get all money.
Or
I said they live there. I didn't say we went there.
Or you could run for office.
Oh, since you're so opinionated, let's talk about it.
Okay, let's talk about that. Y'all remember The Color Purple when that white lady asked Oprah would she be her maid, and Oprah looked at her and said, "Hell no." So I'm saying the same thing. Hell no.
Then don't complain.
Then
don't complain.
You so mad in here, get in here and fix it.
You salty. But you ain't got no solutions. How, Sway? Well, you don't got the answer, Sway.
I got solutions. Stop taking my taxes. I don't want to pay FICA. I don't want to pay Medicare.
That's federal. That's federal.
State and city and local and gas and weed tax.
Okay, let me ask you a question though. Okay.
What is that?
All great. Yes. Absolutely. Taxation is theft, the whole thing. However, do you like the roads that you drive on? Do you like the fact that you don't have to poop in a pail and go dump it in the well?
I don't know. I ain't never did it before. So I don't know if I don't like it or not.
All right. Well, maybe you should move off the grid and go do it.
That's what sounds like.
And not have to pay taxes because you'll be off the grid.
Get you some solar panels and a compost pile. You in there?
Find a
You
way.
in there.
You'll find a
Compost
way.
pile. Okay.
That's all I'm saying. Like off the grid, get rid of your social security number. You know, buy you a plot of land that's outside of an organized area. Like I live in unincorporated plat, so I don't pay city taxes.
You could be a Black Proud Boy.
What?
Now,
Get you a compound.
Honestly,
Get you a compound.
I'm so glad that you mentioned Proud Boys. I do have a question.
Oh,
So
Lord.
I was reading something. I want to ask you guys' opinion of the January 6th, what they call it, insurrection. Because here's what I read, and this is part of the Constitution or something, or whatever, or theory. It says in political philosophy, the right of revolution or right of rebellion is the right or duty of a people to alter or abolish a government that acts against their common interests or threatens the safety of a people without cause. So, and they mentioned American Revolution, French Revolution, Russian, and Iranian Revolution. What is you guys' opinion on that insurrection? And why do you guys feel, I'm not saying that they're right, I'm not saying wrong. I want to know what your opinion was on why you guys feel like they needed to be charged, because they were trying to overthrow a government that they felt was wrong, which is what the Constitution, something about the Constitution states that.
They were wrong because never in the history of America has a law been written that said a white man cannot. Hard stop. So if we don't get to overthrow as Blacks, Browns, Indians, or Natives, if we don't get to overthrow, your privileged ass definitely don't get to overthrow because you think that Black people are getting some type of entitlement or something. No, that's not how that goes. That's hate. That's not, that's different.
Here's the other part. The whole perception of government overreach, all of that was based on, their actions were based on the person who was standing in front of them saying that something was taken from them that wasn't. There was zero evidence. In fact, the person who was saying that something was taken from them knew that there was zero evidence, knew that what they were saying was a lie. And it's been proven through all of the trials, through all of the everything that they've gone through so far, that person, those people knew that they were lying. So the reason that they were charged is because they were attempting to overthrow the government based on information that was false. There was plenty of evidence to the contrary of what they were being told.
How much evidence was it?
I'm sorry, what?
How much evidence was it?
Plenty.
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 Plenty. Yeah.
No.
Plenty evidence that there was an abundance, or like we say in New Orleans, buku evidence. Buku evidence that there was not an election stolen. So those folks were acting on information that they received that was easily dispellable to overthrow the government. And so, like, you could have Googled the shit. Literally Google it.
Jason,
that's like that fine line between hate speech and free speech.
Right.
Like, you can say it. That does not mean that there's not repercussions.
Right.
And when it is used to harm someone else, that's when you cross the line.
Or used to threaten someone else, because they went in and physically and verbally threatened the lives of elected officials. For what? For
has its own set of crimes attached to it.
Yeah.
Jason, is that what y'all did when you was up in Washington doing part of that? Is that what happened?
Hey, dog, listen. I ain't took no parts in no damn insurrection. No damn Capitol building.
We don't need Secret Service, FBI, CIA, not get on our shit. We just joking, y'all.
For those that are listening, like Jason says, for those that are listening, we are not responsible for what Frank Rainey says on the podcast.
This is entertainment only.
You know who was
disclaimer.
DC? You know who was in DC on January? A former legislator by the name of Justin Hill, who was a radical white dude who out of the St. Charles area, St. Louis County area.
It's always St. Charles. Why is it always St. Charles?
Because they're built in racism. There wouldn't be no St. Charles if it wasn't for racism. So he also said, this is the same man who said that the money we were spending during COVID to send school lunches to children on the school buses, to use the school buses to deliver them, was wasteful money. And then he went to January 6th, and then he left the legislator and went to Florida to be a lobbyist. Can't make this shit up.
Okay.
So Frank, you wanted to get into, I think, Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon, right? You had a question about it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, bro.
Pivot.
So recently we just had two quote unquote prominent figures in the media, news media, get fired, get relieved of their duties. One is Tucker Carlson, one is Don Lemon. Do you feel both of them are warranted? What's your opinion on that?
Do we know why they got released? I still never got the information.
Well, Tucker got released for lying, and Don got released because he was old.
Oh wait, Tucker got released for lying. What the fuck he lied about that they didn't lie about?
That's not my mission.
Oh, okay,
all I know is
that's
not my ministry.
My bad. He lied more than them.
He lied enough to be caught, and like defamation, like enough to be caught, and so they released him, and I think it was kind of a quid pro quo. We've seen it in our legislature happen. They got rid of one Democrat because there was a bad Republican. So they kind of got rid of both to make it like an even split, so they didn't look, some type of way. So I think a little bit was that. But I'm sorry, it's birds going off in the background, Lord.
All right.
That's good. The birds are happy. Let the birds be happy. I love that for them.
What was I going to say?
They're about to attack you because you're talking about Tucker.
Right. Hold on, I forgot my thought. But I'm gonna know.
So
yeah, I think it was
go because he was old. That's what you said.
Yeah. Apparently, because they had moved him apparently from the night spot, which I knew him from, and put him in a daytime spot, and the daytime spot had like terrible reviews. So he was let go. He says without warning. They say they gave him warning. I don't know, but I think it was very much a quid pro quo situation. But my concern is that as loose-lipped and radical as Tucker Carlson was, that leaves a vacuum for somebody else to come in and up the ante on the crazy, which is not going to be good for our country. So I'm actually a little concerned about it.
So you were saying you think that Tucker should have stayed in there with his bullshit?
No, I think both of them are evil, and I think that the national media is real big on fear mongering, whether it's MSNBC or Fox, which is why I watch a lot of like Al Jazeera and BBC. I think that it was a different time in news when we all turned on the channel to the same guy and he gave us the same story. Now you can turn on the station and turn on Fox and they say, well, it was 5 black guys who burned down a mosque. And then you'll turn on MSNBC and they'll be like, it was 6 Nazis who burned down a synagogue. And then you get to Al Jazeera and you find out it was 2 guys and it was a school. You know what I mean? Like, So I am upset with our national media, period. And I'm concerned that it is really breaking down the moral fortitude of this country. And moral fortitude is being a good person.
Yeah. I have those concerns, but in a similar way when it comes to creating the silos, because I do think that a lot of our problems, we just talked about bipartisan efforts, we just talked about all of these things. I think a lot of our problems is that we don't listen to each other. And the reason that we don't listen to each other is because we can go into our own rooms, we can go into our own silos and hear messages that resonate with what we already think. So we go to our squad and listen to them as opposed to listening to each other. Because at the end of the day, you know, maybe we do agree. I've talked with a whole lot of Republicans that know we need to do something about the gun violence problem, whether it's urban or school shootings or whatever. We just maybe disagree about how to what to do. But that's a conversation we can have, right? That's the conversation we can have about, okay, this is what I think we need to do. This is what you think we need to do. Let's find a happy medium. Let's do something, but we have to do something because.
So, what do y'all think about as far as with guns? Then let's hit that real quick. What is it that y'all? Let's say you guys' personal opinion. You both are Democrats, and what is a personal opinion? You don't have to give a name if you don't want. But what is another personal opinion of a Republican that they are saying, and that's in the legislature?
So the conversation that I've been having is that we need to start with the young people, and we need to start with the mental health of the young people, because what we're seeing, the gun violence is, I hate to say a symptom because it's a pretty damn bad symptom, but it is a symptom of emotional immaturity, emotional disconnection, or whatever you want to call it, that manifests itself into mental health issues that are not being treated. We are not treating mental health in the state, in our municipalities, in our country. We're not addressing that. And having come off 3 years, because it's still going on, whether we like it or not, it's still going on, of COVID, and so much death and so much carnage and so much of everything and so much isolation and so much separation, that we're not dealing with that. Now, yes, the gun violence issue happened, you know, was starting before that. The school shootings definitely started before that, but we never ever actually addressed the root cause of what's causing these kids to flip out and go shoot their schools. We never addressed what's causing these young people to decide to take a gun and not only take their own life, but take the lives of many other people who they may not have ever even interacted with. So, so there is some. Say that again.
That's part of it.
Okay. What's your opinion like?
You know, so I'm military, right? And when you're military,
Lord,
you get trained on how to shoot certain weapons.
That's another episode. Military.
Properly. Sure, we'll get there. Black people are the perfecters of this union in all types of ways. So I'm not anti-gun, right? I own several. You know what I mean? But what gun owners agree is that you need to be trained and there needs to be a background check. If you have already proven that you can hurt somebody, you do not need to be handed a weapon that can hurt people more. Like, that's crazy. So I believe in background checks. I believe that you shouldn't have military grade because you're in the city, but I don't think the cops should have military grade weapons either. That's another conversation. Right. So, you know, I don't think that you should have extendos and drums because that's crazy. Like, as a military person, if you can't hit your target in 3 shots, you need practice, bro. Like, why you got a 50-round drum? That's just wasteful. Yeah. And even the hunters will be like, you might use an AK for like hunting a coyote because it's small and they quick, but you're not using that in real life. That's only to like come after like humans. And we're not hunting humans. So I believe in background checks. And I believe that we should demilitarize a lot of things.
So what does a Republican believe in that you guys have talked to?
They literally, one of them on the floor, his name is Chad Perkins. He's been in trouble for a couple of things. He's an ex-cop, and he literally said, no red flag laws. Now, what that means is, for this last shooting that happened at St. Louis, that school shooting, the parents tried to take that weapon away from that child, and they had to give it back under state law. But they knew he was going to hurt somebody or himself. And so when you don't have those red flag laws, that's what those are called, which either allows the guardian to take the weapon away or the police to take the weapon away for a certain period of time and then give it back. Yeah. We leave ourselves open to these totally preventable situations.
They're also called extreme risk protection orders. And we've had 2 state reps this year, maybe more. Those 2 got hearings. We heard legislation that said anti-red flag laws. One of those 2 people is the Republican that I was talking to when I was talking about we have to do something. He agrees we have to do something, but he is of the mindset that there is a balance there. And this is my mindset as well. There is a balance between our obligation to individual rights and our responsibility to public safety. And so where we differ at is where the fulcrum is on that balance, right? His is we have more of an obligation to individual rights than public safety. Mine is we have more of a responsibility to public safety than individual rights, which I am 100% freedom loving. I want all the rights. I want all of them full and unencumbered. But at the same
rights
time,
don't come without sacrifice. And
I have the responsibility of making sure I use those rights to not infringe upon somebody else's rights. And so that's where we differ, because I feel like your Second Amendment right should not infringe on somebody else's right to life. And if we really want to go there, they call themselves pro-life conservatives. Yes, but you consider your Second Amendment right more important than the life of these school children. And that's not okay. So we are in this debate about where that fulcrum, where the balance is between the right to responsible gun ownership and our responsibility to public safety as a government body. And that's the conversation that we need to be having. But we will not have that conversation if we are stuck in our silos and yelling at each other from across the room versus coming to the table and having a conversation about, okay, here's my why, here's your why. Let's figure out where we can make some legislation happen that will protect our children.
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear. Well, we're going to wrap it up, ladies, but I want to say thank you for coming on the podcast. It's a great conversation. I'm not in Missouri anymore, but I think the folks in Missouri are better for having you guys in office. I think you have a long road ahead of you from what I hear, but
there's that.
But, as long as you're down.
I will say the prize fight did not disappoint.
Oh, no.
That's what I will say.
No, it did not. It did not. State Rep Jamie Johnson and State Rep Ashley Bland Manlove. Thank you both. Good luck at the Capitol. Good luck. And with that, we're gonna get out of here, y'all. Frank the Tank.
Lil J.
I'm out, y'all. We out. Kings move on, y'all.
D-Town, LA, NO, Florida, Mississippi, KC, MO, Show 'em what you stand for. Show 'em what you stand for. Show 'em what you stand for. Chi-Town, Tennessee, Carolinas, Alabama, Oakland, St. Louis, Detroit, Atlanta. Show 'em what you stand for. Show 'em what you